We have breaking news on one of the Senate races that we've been watching tonight. CBS News projects that Elizabeth Warren, the Democrat, will pick up the Senate seat in the state of Massachusetts. We are projecting that she has defeated Scott Brown, the Republican.
You saw the reaction to the word that Elizabeth Warren is a net gain for the Democrats, defeating the Republican incumbent, the old Ted Kennedy seat, Scott Brown. A Massachusetts Senate pickup for the Dems.
A major update in Decision 2012. NBC is calling the race for U.S. Senate in Massachusetts. Elizabeth Warren has won the seat 52% against 48% again.
This is a big night for Massachusetts, but an even bigger night for the country. This was a critical win for Democrats who risked losing control of the Senate, but the people's seat is going to a Democrat, and for the first time in Massachusetts history, that seat is going to a woman. Let's hear from Senator-elect Elizabeth Warren.
No. Thank you. This... No. This victory belongs to you.
The 2012 Senate race in Massachusetts was one of the most hotly contested races of the 2012 election cycle. Elizabeth Warren became the first woman in Massachusetts history to win a Senate seat, defeating incumbent Scott Brown 53 to 47%. Both candidates spent a whopping $68 million, making this the most expensive Senate race in Massachusetts history and only second to that of the presidential election in 2012. Scott Brown had won his Senate seat 2 years earlier as a result of a special election following the death of Senator Ted Kennedy. Leading up to this election, he had approval ratings at 73% and more than 50% re-election scores. How then was Elizabeth Warren, a relative political amateur, able to beat the incumbent and win the Massachusetts Senate race? The answer to this question warrants a closer look at the candidates, their ideologies, and most importantly, their campaign strategies.
Scott Brown has defied the odds all his life. He's the Republican who came out of nowhere last year and won the Senate seat Ted Kennedy held in Massachusetts for 47 years. Brown's an anti-tax fiscal conservative whose election in blue state Massachusetts energized and helped launch the Tea Party movement. As the 41st Republican senator, everyone thought he'd be the no vote that blocked nearly everything President Obama and the Democrats proposed. But he's turned out to be unpredictably independent.
Scott Brown was born in 1959 in Maine, but grew up in Massachusetts. He attended Tufts University before receiving his law degree in 1985 from Boston College. He then entered local and state politics in the 1990s, including a stint in the Massachusetts State Senate. Although a Republican, Scott Brown crafted an image of himself as an independent and populist everyman. Brown's opponent, Elizabeth Warren, was quite the opposite. She was born in 1949 in Oklahoma to a middle-class family. After graduating college as the first from her family, she practiced law for several years before becoming a professor of bankruptcy law at Harvard University in 1995. During this time, she was also the advisor for the National Bankruptcy Review Commission. In 2008, Harry Reid appointed her the chair of the Congressional Oversight Panel for the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or TARP, which provided bank bailouts following the financial crisis of that year. In 2011, she helped create the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which seeks to protect consumers from financial tricks and traps. Elizabeth Warren is a staunch liberal and Democrat who has fought for the middle class, consumers, and Wall Street regulation. Leading up to the 2012 election cycle, the Democrats had control of the Senate and the presidency. However, there were 33 seats up for re-election. Following Brown's victory in the 2010 special election, he had approval ratings at 73% and a re-election score above 50%. The Democrats released the poll showing Brown's approval ratings, which put pressure on him to maintain his lead. Both candidates worked hard to create campaign messages that would appeal to the voters. Citing himself as an independent and moderate, Scott Brown frequently arrived to his rallies in his pickup truck and wearing his barn jacket. While in Washington, he had separated himself from the GOP by supporting such measures as the Jobs Bill, Wall Street reform, and the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Nobody in this country who got rich on his own. Nobody.
Warren's ability to speak to the hardships of average Americans was one of the factors of her success. She prided herself on being a champion for the working class and consumers. She also appealed to women. Several things worked in Warren's favor from the start. She was a Democrat running in a Democratic state for a Senate seat that had been held by a Democrat for over 40 years. Furthermore, 2012 was also a presidential election year, which featured a Democrat incumbent, Barack Obama, who was favored to win both Massachusetts as well as the presidency. What may have had the most substantial impact on the race, however, was the candidate's pledge against super PACs, or organizations that can spend unlimited sums of money independent of candidates. Despite this pledge, both candidates managed to raise a lot of money, with Elizabeth Warren receiving most of her funds from top educational institutions including Harvard and MIT, as well as liberal groups. Brown received most of his support from Tea Party members, as well as insurance and financial institutions including Goldman Sachs and Liberty Mutual.
I'm Scott Brown, and I approve this message.
Professor Warren got caught in a lie.
Harvard thought that Elizabeth Warren was a minority because she said so.
Harvard touted her as a minority.
Initially, she said she didn't know anything about it.
She kept on covering up and going deeper and deeper into the hole.
Elizabeth Warren got caught.
You know you need to come clean when you're caught.
It seems like this is a pattern for her.
I think it should affect a lot of voters and how they feel about Elizabeth Warren.
We already have enough people in Washington that will say anything. Don't need one more.
The candidate's pledge against super PACs may have been the decisive factor in Warren's victory. Attack ads such as this now infamous Got Caught ad, which criticized Warren's supposed Native American heritage, would usually be put forth by a third party. However, because of the pledge, the attacks came directly from Brown and his campaign, which damaged his credibility and image. Furthermore, Warren took advantage of the pledge to attack Brown's moderate stance, citing his almost unanimous voting record with Republicans while in Washington. The aftermath of this Senate race brings several issues to light. First and foremost, it shows the impact that a well-run campaign can have on election outcomes. Both Warren and Brown had great campaigns that raised a lot of money. However, Elizabeth Warren had the help of Doug Rubin, the same strategist who helped lead Deval Patrick to his re-election as the governor of Massachusetts. Secondly, along with campaigns is the notion of the incumbency advantage as it relates to re-elections. Obviously, this was not the case here, but it could be argued that Scott Brown maybe would have had a chance to win if it had not also been a presidential election year. Finally, this race exemplifies the unpredictability of American politics. Elizabeth Warren was a relative political amateur who had earned the wrath of the financial and insurance sectors through her support of Wall Street regulation. However, she was able to make a name for herself as a voice for the working class and consumers and earn their trust and, most importantly, their votes.
Every family that has been chipped at, squeezed, and hammered, we're going to fight for a level playing field, and we're going to put people back to work. I won't just be your senator. I will be your champion.